If we want people to get up early in the morning, if we want them to work nights, if we want an economy where people go the extra mile and work hard, then we need to recognise that their hard work benefits us all. So today, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to cut the main 12% rate of employee national insurance by 2 percentage points from 12% to 10%. From April the 6th, employee national insurance will be cut by another 2p from 10% to 8%. And self-employed national insurance will be cut from 8% to 6%.
National insurance contributions as a topic has continued to linger since the last budget. And it's lingered because there is discussions that the Tories want to abolish national insurance contributions altogether. Now, that would be good news for some, it would be bad news for others. But this is Rishi Sunak explaining his rationale as to why he thinks it needs to be abolished and it needs to be simplified.
And the reason that we've chosen to cut national insurance in particular is because it's a tax on work. And we have this unfairness at the moment, where if you're working, you pay tax twice. Once in income tax and then again on national insurance. That's unnecessarily complicated because all of that money ultimately goes into the same pot, funds the same public services. But also, as I said, it's unfair because you're paying tax not once but twice. And my ultimate ambition is to remove that unfairness entirely. And if we stick to our plan, not just can we deliver the £900 of tax cuts this year, we can really make progress towards that long-term ambition over time and in the next Parliament.
Now, aside from the double taxation, which it is true, I think we as adults in the UK know that if the government gives with one hand, they're going to take with the other. And so in this video, just exploring, is abolishing national insurance contributions the right thing to do? Does it actually help? Where do the government actually get their money from? What part of the revenue or how much of the revenue that the government generates on a yearly basis is constituted within national insurance contributions? How big is that pie that they would have to replace? Because make no mistakes, they have to replace it. And what are the longer term impacts if they did abolish national insurance contributions? The most obvious one will be the state pension. What happens? That's what I want to talk about. And the first thing I want to cover is, where does the government get its money from? Now, you may be interested to know that 42% of the government's revenue is from tax on income. And these numbers are from the IFS. In 2023-2024, the total UK government revenue was forecast to be 1.06 trillion. Now, when you think about this revenue generation and where it's all coming from, according to this chart right here, this pie chart, you'll see in the green that the largest proportions, 25.6%, is coming from income, so tax on income specifically. The second largest slice is from national insurance contributions, which is 16.4. You have in the red there VAT, and I bring VAT up because VAT is something that we all pay. We pay VAT on pretty much all of our purchases, no matter what you're doing. So when you combine those three all together, so 57.5% of the government's revenue is in some way, shape or form taken from us as citizens, from our income, from our productivity, from the money that we earn and spend within the economy. Now, it's really, really interesting when you look at it that way, because national insurance contributions, if they're going to abolish this, it is a huge piece of the pie. It's 16.4%, so it represents about £172.3 billion. That's in 2023-2024. Now, this can lead to other questions around where does the money actually come from? And interesting, when you're looking at this pie, one of the things that I noticed first, and there are two things that I want to raise in this video that are worthwhile us discussing in the chat, is company taxes. So how much money are they generating from companies, businesses? And I really want to focus on large corporations here, more so than, the small, medium-sized enterprises per se. So what are they generating in terms of company taxes? Now, this is how that table actually breaks down from the data provided by the IFS here. So company taxes It makes up about 9.2% of the overall revenue the government generates. And the biggest contribution to that 9.2% is corporation tax at 8.1. Now, you have to ask the question, is that surprising or is that expected? Now, bearing in mind that this would have been laid out and structured in a way to make the UK an attractive place for companies to come along, invest, set up business, employ people, and as a byproduct of that, allow us or the government to generate more in income tax and in national insurance contributions. So these would have been methodically and meticulously planned out. But interestingly, remember the whole conversation around energy prices and energy companies making a lot of profits, Centrica making, billions of profits during the cost of living crisis because energy prices have gone up. Well, look at the second line here, energy profits levy. That only represents about 0.5% of the revenue generated by the government in 2023, 2024. Now, considering these companies made billions and it was such a big conversation around this energy profits levy, are you surprised? Because I'm a little surprised that it's only 0.5%. But you look at this though, you've got the apprenticeship levy, 0.3%, you've got the electricity generator levy, 0.3%, you've got the bank levy, 0.1%. If we are going to abolish national insurance contributions and that money needs to be recouped, surely the government would have to have a look at this part of their revenue streams to ensure that you're not overburdening people with other taxes in another form to take the place of NI, specifically if that were to happen. And this is a very big if, so this is very hypothetical, by the way. The other thing that I want to have a look at on this chart is capital taxes, because this is a conversation that I'm sure needs to be had first and foremost and is being had within the social spaces right now. And that is, should there be higher taxation on things like investments, on things like properties? Should there be a wealth tax? Well, currently, as of 2023 and 2024, this is how much money the government has generated from tax on investments. It equates about 4% of the government's revenue. Capital gains tax specifically equates to 1.7%. You've got stamp duty, 1.6%. You've also got inheritance tax at 0.7%. I think as a whole, there are a lot of questions that abolishing NI would raise that don't necessarily have easy answers. There is the question of how are you going to recoup it? What does it actually look like? Does it then not simplify, but make the tax system a lot more complicated? I think the bigger question, though, is what happens to the state pension? Because currently you need 35 qualifying years of national insurance contributions to get the state pension. So if NI is abolished as a tax, how do you track people's eligibility for the state pension moving forward? Does this potentially give them the ability to put a nail in the coffin of the state pension altogether? There are so many questions that this raises, the state pension being the biggest one of all. It feels like everything that's been happening in terms of news that you've been hearing about the state pension of late is suggesting that, the chances of us receiving state pension is getting thinner and thinner and thinner, literally by the year. And if they do go with the recommendation to push the state pension back to 71, that's already pretty late. I think I read somewhere else that there was a recommendation to put it back even further. So yes, people may be living a little bit longer, but after working all your life and contributing to the system for 35 years, not actually getting the state pension would be catastrophic for a lot of people. So I think there were a lot of questions to be asked. And I know that this hasn't been an instructional video per se, but someone asked me this on Instagram on a Q&A a few weeks ago, and I posted my response to that question. And there was a lot of conversation, a lot of views on that post on Instagram. So I thought this would be a great thing for us to discuss here on YouTube. Let me know what you think. I personally think that they should just leave NI alone And I think that as a nation, we're at that stage now where we have to start thinking about how we actually generate more in revenue from different parts of our tax system, i.e., going back to this chart, how do we get more out of companies? How do we get more out of investments? How do we get more out of, people who are generating vast sums of income from investment portfolios, from, property portfolios, who are inheriting an awful lot of money, but are able to exploit loopholes? That's what I think needs to be done. But as ever, do we have confidence in our politicians to do that? The age-old arguments of, well, if you try and tax the wealthy, they'll just move, will pop up. It's the age-old questions of, it's not easy to do. I think we need to find a way of doing it, because currently, this whole thing, it doesn't work. The maths, it's not mathing, as they're saying right now. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think abolishing NI as a tax potentially muddies the waters a little bit more. We need radical thinking. We need a different approach. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.